You don't need to visit me in the hospital anymore, but I do need you to pay for the treatment costs." "What are you talking about?" I couldn't help but feel confused. I had been working tirelessly at part-time jobs for my husband, even after he fell ill. I had been covering the transportation and treatment costs with the money I earned. "Your role is over now. Thanks for everything up until now." "Don't joke around," I said, feeling a mix of disbelief and anger. "I'm completely serious. I'm going to remarry your best friend." Was he really asking me to accept this after dedicating my life to him? Rage bubbled up from the depths of my heart, ready to erupt like magma. As if to provoke me further, he continued, "Sorry, but you're going to have to leave our home soon. It's not your place anymore." "Are you serious?" "Don't make me repeat myself." "Since when?" I asked, the question burning in my mind. "Oh, it's been a while. Probably shortly after I got sick." I was bewildered by this sudden revelation, but I wasn't going to agree to a divorce easily. He might have thought I would comply quietly, but that was a big mistake. "I'm quite busy as well. Here, sign this," he said, pulling out the divorce papers from a drawer. I was irate, wondering how badly he wanted this divorce, but honestly, I was tired of being married to such a person. "Fine, I'll sign it." "Good, that's a smart decision on your part." "Yeah, isn't it?" He looked at me with a smug, mocking expression. There was no need to hold back any more, and so the curtain rose on my quest for revenge. My name is Betty, and I'm an ordinary 50-something housewife. My husband, John, and I were about to celebrate our 28th wedding anniversary. Our son, Alex, got married a year ago and now lives a bit away from us. Up until that point, our life seemed to be going smoothly, but a major change happened about 10 years ago. "I'm sorry for putting you through this." "It can't be helped," I replied. John was diagnosed with stomach cancer during a checkup at his company when he was 40. It was detected early, but it was still a shocking and heart-stopping moment for us. I can barely remember the moment he told me. "I'll probably have to deal with hospital visits and maybe even hospitalization." "I'll handle it. Sorry and thank you." Immediately started working part-time jobs. We had some savings, but I was uncertain about how long he would need treatment and how much it would cost. I informed our son, but he was still in college at the time, and it wasn't practical to ask for his help frequently. "Thank you for today. You've been a big help in so many ways." "No problem at all. We're best friends, aren't we? Besides, it's all give and take." My worried best friend, Susan, came to check on me, and it was really reassuring. She was the one who helped me out when I was having trouble finding a part-time job. Thanks to her, I managed to get by. In fact, when work was busy, I used to ask Susan for rides to and from the hospital. It really helps that you came all this way. Don't mention it. I didn't have much else to do anyway. Still, doesn't your husband say anything about it? "Oh, he's fine. Seems like he's not that interested in me anymore." "What? Really?" A strange voice escaped from me in surprise. I've known Susan for a long time, and she has always been beautiful, never changing. She's the same age as me, and she seems even more charming after turning 40. "You're so beautiful." "I'm envious," I sighed. Standing next to her makes me feel embarrassed. "Have you had any good things happen lately? Your smile seems to have increased just a little." "It's a secret from you." "What's that about? You have to tell me sometime." "Some other time," Susan said with a slight lift in her smile. I soon forgot about it, but little did I know what was coming. The treatment was going well, but proportionately, my husband's attitude started to change. "You have it easy." "What?" It was during a hospital visit for his checkup. His sudden words left me confused. "Even if you say you're working, you still rely on your best friend for rides." "What are you talking about?" "Yes, she gives me a ride when I'm busy." "Busy? You're just working at a grocery store. Don't exaggerate." A question came to my mind. I used to ask Susan for rides when I was busy, but recently she started offering to take me on her own. She even went to check on my husband in the hospital on my behalf when he was hospitalized for a checkup. What are you spacing out for? You did bring what I asked for, right? Yes, of course. You could be a bit more thoughtful. Hand it over. What my husband asked for were things to kill time, magazines and drinks. I endured his sarcastic remarks and handed over the convenience store bag. Fortunately, my cancer was detected early, so I am able to be this healthy. But if my condition was worse, it wouldn't have been like this. You can go back now. But isn't there some explanation or something after this? I don't need you here for that. What? I'm your wife. It's only natural for me to hear about it. You don't get it. It's just a progress report. Even so, I tried desperately to argue, but my husband's mind did not change. Thinking that arguing here would be pointless, I decided to leave. If that's how you feel, I'll go back. Yeah, take care. As I closed the door to his room, my husband didn't look at me, engrossed in his magazine. I started to wonder, why am I doing all this? 3 weeks later, my husband was to be discharged, but his attitude only got worse. I'm glad he could be discharged. The next day, we decided to celebrate my husband's return from the hospital by inviting Susan over to our house. Susan, thank you for coming today. Since you've made the effort to come, please make yourself at home. Thank you. What's Betty doing? I'm the main event today, you know. I'll get everything ready now. Then I'll help out too. That's when my husband chimed in, stopping Susan. Susan, you don't have to do anything. You're our guest today. Susan looked at me as if to say, what should I do? I thought it would be nice if she helped, since she seemed unsure, but I kept that thought to myself. Susan, just relax. It's not a big deal. The smile I gave Susan at that moment might have been strained. My feelings were just that complex. Peeking from the kitchen, I saw them continuing their friendly conversation. He was showing her a smile he hadn't shown me since he was diagnosed with cancer. Hey, what are you dawdling for? Sorry. Rushing back to them, my husband started to make snide remarks. Come on, Susan is here, you know. Get it together, John. I really don't mind. Betty, you should be thankful to Susan. Yeah, I couldn't accept why I was being told all this. However, with Susan present, I couldn't complain and just had to bear it. No, I had no choice but to bear it. After about 3 hours, Susan left, but that wasn't the end of it. I'll leave the cleanup to you, he said, making a mess while drinking and not even offering to help. I couldn't hold back my irritation any longer. By the way, when did you become so close to Susan? I blurted out. The atmosphere in the room instantly tensed. What? Are you jealous of Susan? You, a woman of your age? My husband laughed, pointing at me. It's not that funny. It is what it is. From that day on, my husband completely started to belittle me. Then the situation became dire. The cancer we thought was completely cured had unexpectedly metastasized. Oh, why do I have to be hospitalized again? My husband showed signs of exhaustion, but those were my lines. Since his discharge, I had reduced my part-time work from 5 days a week to 2. The thought of increasing my work hours again was daunting. On the morning of his hospitalization, he suddenly said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, but you don't have to come visit anymore." What? Why? You've been having a hard time too, haven't you? That might be true, but besides, I need you to earn a steady income. He used to look down on my part-time job, but now he was conveniently changing his tune. We had almost used up our savings for his previous hospital stay and surgery. Furthermore, since his discharge, he had been pouring quite a lot of money into his hobbies to relieve the stress from his hospital stay. I was planning to work more anyway. Then stop hanging around here and go work already. Feeling like I was being treated as a nuisance, I decided to leave right away. Well, I'm going to head home then. Hang in there. As I tried to leave the hospital, I passed by a familiar face. Susan, what are you doing here? Oh, hey, come to think of it, Jean is getting hospitalized, right? Yeah, so what about you, Susan? A friend of mine is also in this hospital. I came to visit. I had a small chat with Susan before going home, but I couldn't stop thinking about running into her at the hospital. However, I couldn't put my finger on what was bothering me. In the end, I went to work part-time while holding on to these unsettled feelings. Is that you, Betty? I have a favor to ask. A favor? I thought you weren't going to rely on me. I got a call from my husband the day after he was admitted to the hospital. He had been so aggressive, but in the end, he only came to me with empty threats. That doesn't matter right now. Just get over here quickly. All right, I understand. I'll be right there. Going to the hospital just meant running errands for my husband. After that, he developed various illnesses in addition to cancer, and he repeatedly got admitted and discharged from the hospital. Each time, I kept doing errands and providing transportation for him. Before I knew it, a whole decade had flown by. The reason I hadn't divorced him until now was because of our son. It might be about time, huh? You stayed this long because of me, right? I think it's a good idea, too, my son said. My son's stepfather was strict with single parents due to his own tough experiences. That's why I endured until my son got married. When my son came to visit his parental home, I decided to take a chance and talk to him about it. However, it feels like I'm losing if I'm the one who brings it up. Well, knowing him, he's definitely going to say something. That's why I'm going to wait for a while. I can endure it for that. That's fine, but don't push yourself too hard, okay? I know. However, every time my husband said harsh words to me or treated me badly, he would fall ill. I even started to think that maybe this was his punishment. This time was no exception, as he ended up being hospitalized with a stomach ulcer. Ironically, it felt like it should have been me. However, he seemed okay with medication, so his hospital stay would be short. On the day of his admission, I went to visit him. From now on, you don't need to come visit me, but I do need you to cover the medical bills. What? What are you talking about? I had been subjected to all sorts of things until now, but I was astounded by my husband who just wanted to use me for his convenience. I had been providing transportation for his hospital visits and even paying for his medical bills with the money I earned. You've served your purpose. Thanks for everything until now. Don't joke with me. I'm completely serious. Plus, I'm going to remarry your best friend. My best friend? Don't tell me? Susan? Yeah, that's right. I'm marrying Susan. She's more beautiful and kind-hearted than you. However, this raised a big question. Divorce him and marry me instead, he said, as if the word best friend set off a volcano of rage inside me. My husband continued as if to provoke me further. Sorry, but you need to get out of the house soon. It's not your place anymore. Are you serious? I asked. Don't make me repeat myself. Since when? I pressed on. It's been a long time, probably just after I got sick. I see. Although I was confused by his sudden wish for a divorce, I wasn't ready to agree to it smoothly. My husband might have thought I'd comply quietly, but he was sorely mistaken. I'm busy too. Here, sign this, he said, pulling out divorce papers from a drawer. I was irritated, wondering just how much he wanted to divorce me, but honestly, I was tired of being married to such a person. Fine, I'll divorce you. That's a good decision for once. Yeah, that's right. As I said this, my husband gave me a mocking grin. No holding back now. The curtain on my revenge had risen. In that case, I'll go ahead and submit this divorce paper myself. Is that so? Thanks. Taking the divorce paper from my husband, I decided to go home first. Sitting on the sofa, I took a deep breath. The real challenge was just beginning. I called my son to tell him about the situation. I can't believe you were prepared to this extent. Well, it means you really wanted a divorce, doesn't it? Besides, the timing isn't bad. He was the one who brought it up after all. And if you're getting kicked out of the house, come stay with us. That's a relief, but are you sure? Of course, I've already talked to my wife about it to some extent. Thank you. With that, I packed a few days' worth of belongings in a bag and headed to my son's house. Surprised at how welcoming they were, I felt relieved to have allies. But to think he's been planning this for nearly a decade, what was he thinking? I pondered on my son's muttered words. Thinking about it, there had indeed been signs. She must have come to the hospital to see my husband. I had become so enraged with my husband for treating me like an obstruction and Susan for deceiving me that I'd wanted to make them suffer. But what are you going to do now? Don't worry, I've got this. Huh, the divorce paper? Yes, his name is already on it, and I told him I would submit it myself. Oh, I see. So that's your plan? It seemed like my son had caught on to my scheme. As long as I don't submit this piece of paper to the authorities, we are still married. Though I suspected infidelity, I had no concrete proof. That's why I decided not to submit it immediately and aimed to gather evidence instead. I feel bad for asking you, but I might need your help. That's a given. So where do we start? First, we wait for him to be discharged from the hospital. He wanted me out, so he must be planning to live in that house. But the other party is your best friend, isn't she? Are you okay with that? I let out a deep sigh. If that's the case, then I'm ready. Even though we were best friends, she did something she shouldn't have. At this point, I reached out to a certain person, Susan's husband, Tom. It seems like he was suddenly faced with a divorce just like me. When I made a certain proposal to him, he readily accepted it. Well then, I'm counting on you. I hope this works out. Susan used to tell me that she wasn't getting enough attention, but apparently that was a lie. It seems like she was the one ignoring him. They really were two of a kind. When I heard this story, all I could do was sigh. For now, just leave it to me. I'll make those two pay for their sins. I anxiously awaited my husband's discharge from the hospital. He was discharged about 10 days later. While staying at my son's house, I contacted my husband. I have some belongings I want to pick up. Is that okay? Belongings? Didn't you take everything with you? I'm sorry, there's just something I really need to bring with me. You can throw everything else away. That should be fine. And how's Susan doing? Oh, she's fine. We're going to live together in 2 days, so get everything done before that. I had no intention of following his instructions. It had to be when the two of them were together. 2 days later, my son drove me to the house. I still had the keys, so I sneaked inside. What are you doing here? I swung open the living room door with force. There they were, sitting on the sofa, holding hands. Why are you here? Did you forget? I said I was coming to get my belongings. I glanced at Susan. She looked surprised, her eyes wide open. Susan, long time no see. You look well. Susan looked down, maybe feeling a bit guilty, but it was too late for that now. Just grab your stuff and get out. This isn't your house anymore. Why? This should still be my house too, right? What are you talking about? We're divorced, aren't we? Hearing that, I couldn't help but smile slightly. I did give you the divorce papers, didn't I? The divorce papers? Is this what you mean? I showed him the papers he had given me. You didn't file it? Then go file it right now. Don't worry, I'll make sure to file it later. But first, there's something I need to do. What's that? He looked completely clueless. Since I haven't filed this, we're still married, and yet you've brought a woman into our home. You know what this means, right? He didn't understand, but Susan did. Her face turned pale. John, this is serious. What? Why are you worrying so much? What she's saying isn't a big deal. I was tired of watching him make a fool of himself. You might not realize it, but what you're doing right now is cheating. Cheating? Our relationship has been over for a long time. That might be true, but legally we're still married. If we're doing this, it's considered cheating. He stood up, looking like he was about to grab me. You tricked me. Tricked? Don't be ridiculous. I did say I'd file for divorce, but I never said I'd do it right away. How can I accept that? That's not the issue here. It's your mistake for misunderstanding. Were you getting ahead of yourself? What does that mean? He was blatantly shifting the blame. Of course, I'm going to demand alimony. There might even be a division of property. So that was your plan all along? It's payback for everything you've done up until now. Damn it, that's unfortunate for you, he mumbled to himself, wondering why this was happening. There was one more person I needed to confront. Susan, you realize I'm going to have to demand alimony from you as well, right? But we're best friends. Can't we settle this more amicably? We were best friends until just a moment ago. Oh, and Susan, you did give the divorce papers to John, didn't you? How did you know that? If you brought up this topic, a smart woman like Susan would have figured it out by now. No way. That's right. John hasn't filed for divorce either, so you might get a demand for alimony from him as well. Susan suddenly stood up. I'm going home. What are you talking about? Goodbye. With that, Susan left the house. My husband was left standing there with his mouth agape. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. It's really unfortunate. Even Susan left you. Can you stop blaming others for once? Not everything is my fault. He unexpectedly changed his attitude. You're right. I seem to have forgotten how important you were, Betty. Your words made me realize that. Finally, you've come to your senses. That's right. I was out of my mind. I knew what my husband was about to say, and I didn't want to hear it. I'm telling you now, I'm still going to demand alimony, and we're getting a divorce. I can see right through your intentions. I've apologized. How did I? As if an apology would make me forgive you. What kind of woman would get back together with a loser who even got dumped by his affair partner? Having said my piece, I felt satisfied and started to leave. My husband grabbed onto my leg. Please, I can't live like this. Excuse me, that's none of my business. Could you let go of me? I shook him off and left the house, returning to my son. Alex, how did it go? It was great in so many ways. I see. You do look like you've cleared up. Since we're here, let's eat something delicious before we go home. I had never felt so refreshed. There were still things left to do, but for today, seeing my husband's face of despair was enough satisfaction. A few days later, I requested a divorce mediation from a lawyer. I wanted to settle things before my husband could start any troublesome arguments. He probably never thought it would come to this, but that was his mistake. Hello, Susan. I got a call from Susan on my way back from consulting with a lawyer. There was a moment of silence over the phone. Is there something you need? I'm really sorry about this situation. I will make sure to pay the compensation. All right, and how are you holding up? We've talked it over and decided not to get a divorce. I see. Well, I wish you happiness. Susan seemed like she wanted to say more, but I hung up. I felt like if we kept talking, I might end up forgiving her, which isn't something I could easily do. After all, she had been deceiving me for nearly 10 years. Of course, Susan wasn't the only one who contacted me. You don't have anything to talk to me about, do you? Wait, please, just hear me out. Well, since it's probably the last time, I'll listen. I'm going to be hospitalized again. By this point, I wasn't surprised anymore. How long are you going to be in the hospital? You'll need to handle it yourself from now on. I don't have any money. I've supported you as much as I could until now, but I'm not obligated to do that anymore. Why don't you ask someone else for help? There's no one else who can help. Well, you had someone until now. That's too bad. If that's all you wanted to talk about, I'm hanging up now. Good luck. I was satisfied that I could convey my sarcasm. I could imagine his expression. After that, the divorce was finalized smoothly, and I received the proper compensation. Finally, I was free from the shackles of marriage. I couldn't be happier. By the way, I had a call from him, too. This was a week after I had received the call. Oh, really? Yeah, but of course I told him I couldn't do anything to help. That's the right answer. He should struggle for a while to make up for the past. I am still living with my sons, surrounded by my daughters-in-law and grandchildren. I am happy. I wasted almost 10 years, but it's not too late to start over. From now on, I want to live a peaceful life, making up for lost time.
The message stared back at me from my phone screen, my hands trembling. Thought you'd want to see how perfect my life turned out. Ellis proposed last night on the beach in Hawaii. Baby girl due in 2 months too. I have everything I ever wanted. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Marina. The wound I thought had healed tore open again, raw and aching. You okay, Cal? My husband Adrian peered over my shoulder, his thick brows drawing together. I twisted away quickly, locking my phone. Fine, I muttered. Who was that from? You look like you've seen a ghost. His strong hands clasped my shoulders, warmth seeping through my shirt. I shook my head, avoiding his dark eyes full of concern. I didn't want to taint our happy life together by dragging in the past. Marina was my burden to bear. Just an old friend, I managed. She wanted to catch up. At 7 a.m. on a Saturday? Adrian raised one eyebrow. He knew me too well. Before he could ask more, our 4-year-old cacophony of curly hair and dimples toddled into the room, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. Mama, sausage! His demands derailed us as I scooped him up, peppering his round cheeks with kisses until he squealed. Over tiny fingers sticky with syrup, I met Adrian's gaze. We'll talk tonight after Nate's in bed. He nodded, though his eyes told me he wouldn't forget. After breakfast, I bundled Nate up for the park to buy some time. The cold January air reddened his cheeks as he raced toward the swings, dinosaur flapping. My little munchkin, my light, he filled my days with joy I'd never dreamed possible. Watching Nate play, the wounds in my heart throbbed anew. I couldn't let this go. Marina had stolen so much from me already. My sense of self-worth, my dreams for the future. Years spent battling crippling anxiety and depression, thanks to her mind games. Not this time. She didn't get to swan in with her tacky ring and erase the family I had built. The happiness she mocked me too broken to ever attain. I tapped out a reply with chilled, gloved fingers. Congrats to you and Ellis. I'd love to meet your new baby girl and catch up when you're settled. Saturday brunch next month? My phone pinged seconds later. How thoughtful, Callie. Can't wait to welcome you into our gorgeous new home. I'll make sure the chef whips up plenty of food for us girls to nibble on while we chat. Come hungry. I gritted my teeth as Nate raced over, cheeks flushed, mittened hands grabbing mine to spin dizzy circles. His joyful giggles lightened my mood, even as I worried what seeing Marina might dredge up. I had to try, for my own sake. Closure waited on the other side of her torment. I just had to tough it out. Adrian? I asked later as we lay under the covers. His arms wrapped around me. Want to come with me on a reunion brunch next month? I felt his breath stir my hair as he asked, with that old friend from the message? Yeah. Her name's Marina. My voice stuck in my throat. We have a complicated history. His arms tightened around me. I'm here if you want to talk about it. Haltingly, tears slipping down my cheeks to wet the pillows, I told Adrian about the decade of friendship severed in a single day's betrayal. My first love, Ellis, running off with my best friend when I was just 19. Their wedding just a year later, everyone acting like my pain meant nothing. Adrian listened silently, thumb wiping away the steady drip of tears, his presence my safe harbor. When I finished, he pressed his lips to my hair. I'll come with you, Cal. We'll face her together. The morning of our ill-fated reunion, I woke before dawn, restless anxiety churning my otherwise empty stomach. Adrian's steady breathing was my only comfort as I slipped from bed to pace our darkened bedroom. Today I would face the friend who twisted the knife of betrayal so cruelly, walking back into a past I wanted only to forget. But forgetting let her win. This time I looked her in the eye as an equal. Adrian emerged bleary-eyed just as pale light filtered through the curtains. Strong arms enfolded me. It'll be okay, Cal. I've got your back. His voice dispelled some shadows. I nodded into his shoulder, breathing in his woodsy scent before pulling away. Let's get this over with. I dressed on autopilot, donning armor to guard my still fragile heart. Picking Nate up from Adrian's parents, my smile felt brittle as glass. Their warm hugs soothed like a balm before we headed out. Marina's ostentatious house loomed, windows glinting. My knees went weak seeing Ellis's shiny BMW parked in the drive, vanity plate MD Ellis gleaming. Adrian's hand found mine, steadying. The heavy mahogany door swung open. Marina posed like a magazine spread come to life in a clingy red dress, flawless makeup unable to hide the calculating glint in her eyes as they raked over me. "Callie, so glad you could make it." Her delighted trill didn't reach those cold eyes. "And you brought a guest." I stepped aside to reveal Adrian, pride swelling my heart. "This is my husband, Adrian." Marina's smile fractured for a split second. "Of course. Lovely to meet you, Adrian." She led us inside the cavernous foyer toward the sunlit breakfast nook where Ellis sat scrolling his phone. My pulse stuttered seeing him relaxed amid extravagant flower arrangements and linen-draped tables. Adrian gave my clammy hand a subtle, bracing squeeze. "Ellis, sweetie, you remember Callie?" Marina cooed, "And this is her husband, Adrian." He extended his free hand. After an awkward pause, Ellis stood to shake it, mouth twisting. "Can I offer you some refreshments?" Marina gestured smoothly, the consummate hostess. "Mimosa? Coffee?" I opened my mouth to decline when Adrian said easily, "Coffee would be great, thanks." He met my gaze as Marina wafted away, message clear. We needed to stay alert. An awkward silence swelled. I studied the ostentatious diamond on Marina's left hand, recalling my pure joy when a 19-year-old Ellis proposed to me with a modest ring of his grandmother's. Staring at Marina across the table moments later, I knew she hadn't forgotten either. Her sly smile oozed malicious delight at flaunting her enviable life. My voice came out steady. "Where is that new baby girl of yours?" Marina's smile turned saccharine. "Oh, the nanny has her. I can't be worrying about her fussing right now, can I?" she tittered. I bit my tongue as anger flared. Of course her baby was an accessory, stashed out of sight. I thought of Nate's delightful babble and kissable cheeks. My son was my whole heart, not a status symbol. "You two will have to try for one soon," Marina continued breezily. "I can recommend my fertility doctor if you need. Sometimes it just takes a little push, right?" I froze. We hadn't shared my long struggle with secondary infertility. The barb hit its mark. Adrian shifted closer, draping his arm around my shoulders. "We have an amazing son named Nate. He's 4, I managed. Adrian and I shared a private smile at the thought of our rascal's antics. Marina's gaze turned calculating, thin brows lifting. "Oh, really? You never mentioned him, Callie." Her tongue caressed my name like a taunt. "Well, isn't that nice for you both?" I bit the inside of my cheek, holding her cunning gaze. Adrian's solid presence grounded me for the agonizing small talk yet to come. The opening shots had been fired, but I wouldn't crumble this time. Game on, Marina. The rest of that awkward brunch passed in a tense haze of subtle barbs and thinly veiled boasts. Adrian's solid presence was my lifeline as we navigated the minefield Marina laid with each casually cruel comment. Finally, we made our escape, Ellis's aloof dismissal barely registering through my anger and hurt. Back home, I asked my in-laws to keep Nate a bit longer, needing time to process. Adrian drew me a bath while I stared numbly out the window, lost in memories. The wound Marina ripped open refused to stop seeping anguish, no matter how I tried to stem the flow. I let the lavender-scented water soothe my frazzled nerves before joining Adrian where he waited on our bed. No words passed between us at first in the quiet sanctuary of our room. I found solace leaning against his broad chest, his fingers slowly carding through my damp hair in wordless support. When I felt grounded enough in the present moment, the words started spilling out. Seeing them today was harder than I expected, I admitted. It all came flooding back. How much they hurt me. Adrian listened intently as I plunged into memories I usually kept locked away, finding comfort in having a safe place to unpack that painful baggage. I told Adrian about my teenage years as the shy, awkward girl struggling to believe I deserved friends or admiration. Marina had seemed like a gift, beautiful and bubbly. Her confidence drew others like moths to a flame. I basked gratefully in her popularity and warmth, never dreaming it was all conditional. The first cracks appeared when I caught the eye of Ellis, a handsome track star 2 years above us. Popular Marina had dated strong-jawed football players and cocky student government types more suited to her glittering social tier before. The way she looked at me when Ellis and I shared milkshakes and held hands in the hallways should have warned me our days were numbered. But I was young and blind, drunk on nascent love. The bubbly warmth Marina showed me evaporated overnight when Ellis proposed the Valentine's Day of my senior year. At our celebratory sleepover 2 days later, I emerged from the bathroom to find them half naked and frantic in my bed. Every insecurity came crashing down at once, my sense of self-worth shredded beyond repair. They didn't just take my future or my social life. They took any ability to trust myself or others for years. I swiped angrily at the tears trailing down my cheeks. Adrian's steady heartbeat and the brush of his lips on my hair kept me tethered to now. I believed for so long something was wrong with me after they tore my world apart. Why take what I wanted most unless I didn't deserve it? My voice broke on the ugly truth that shaped so many depressive episodes and sabotaged so many relationships. Adrian shifted onto his side and gently cupped my chin. You didn't deserve what they did to you. That was on them, not you. His eyes radiated fervent conviction. You deserve the world, Callie, and I plan on spending my life reminding you. Fresh tears spilled over at the tenderness in his face. I might bear scars from that traumatic betrayal, but Adrian loved my whole self, damage and all. If seeing Marina was the test, I realized I'd already passed. I had everything today that she tried so hard to deny me out of petty jealousy. I was the lucky one after all. I expected relief after confronting my painful history, but closure remained elusive even weeks later. Adrian watched me poke listlessly at my breakfast with growing concern creasing his brow. You're still thinking about her. It wasn't a question. He knew me too well. I sighed, dropping my fork onto the half-eaten plate of eggs. I just keep replaying it all, wondering if I should have handled it differently. Could I have said something to throw her off balance for once? You stood your ground and held your head high through that ambush. I was proud just to be by your side. Adrian reached across the table to squeeze my hand. She wanted to get under your skin, so don't give her the satisfaction. My phone chimed from the counter, interrupting the tender moment. I shuffled over, expecting a text from my sister or mom. The sender made my breath halt. Marina? I opened it hastily, nerves sparking. Hi, Callie. Enjoyed our catch-up session last month. I shuddered at her use of catch-up session like it had been two old friends nibbling cookies over tea, not a minefield of microaggressions. Thought you might want to see baby Sloane now that we're home from the hospital. Come by any time. The words blurred. I could almost hear her playful, egging me on tone through the screen. She dangled her perfect newborn like a prize pony, continuing her attempts to flaunt her picture-perfect life. My molars ground together audibly. Adrian came up behind me, wordlessly reading over my shoulder before wrapping me in his strong arms. I'm so sick of her games, Adrian, I whispered into his chest. She's eaten up with jealousy, and it's pathetic. He stroked my hair thoughtfully before pulling back to meet my eyes. You still want closure, though, right? To put this behind you once and for all? I nodded, eyes prickling with irrational tears. Then we end this on our terms. We'll go let her parade around feeling superior, then pull the rug out from under her. I think I know just the way. A sly grin spread across his face. 2 weeks later, we again stood outside Marina and Ellis's ostentatious house, this time with a secret weapon in tow. My palms turned clammy as we walked up, our 4-year-old son babbling happy nonsense between us. Nate knew nothing of the history behind this visit. He just radiated cheerful joy at a special outing with Mommy and Daddy. The door flew open, Marina striking yet another affected pose for her perceived audience. Her scarlet lips parted, eyes widening as she spotted our grinning tow-headed addition clutching my hand. Callie, you made it, and this must be. Her composure barely flickered. Our son, Nate, Adrian supplied when I faltered. Well, isn't he just precious? Her trill echoed with false delight. Come in, come in. This time, as we settled around the table laid out with ornate tea sets and dainty finger foods, I fought to hide a smirk. Marina hadn't expected adorable evidence of my abundant happiness. Our eyes locked over the table and her gaze sharpened before her plastic smile reappeared. Help yourself to snacks. Love, she told Nate with cloying sweetness. I'll just fetch Miss Sloane from the nanny and be right back. As she sashayed off, I squeezed Adrian's leg under the table, my heart lighter than it had felt in years. Let the games begin. Marina returned moments later, cooing over the blanket-swaddled newborn in her arms, her usually immaculate hair frizzed slightly, betraying the imperfections beneath her polished veneer. I smiled blandly up at her. "What a little doll! You look amazing for just having a baby, Marina." "Oh, this," she laughed lightly, smoothing her figure-hugging dress. "The gym has done more for my physique than any silly fad diet. I won't be caught out with baby weight." I hid a flare of annoyance as she preened. My post-baby body had taken years to regain confidence in after Nate. Her petty comments only highlighted her jealousy. My fit, happy toddler was worth every stretch mark and squishy area that lingered, though Marina would never understand. Oblivious, Nate babbled nonsense at the bundle in Marina's arms between sticky handfuls of cake. My friend cooed over him like borrowed accessory. "Clever boy, you'll have all the girls chasing you in a few years," she trilled, loud enough to grate. I fought not to clench my jaw. "He takes after his father," I said, meeting Adrian's warm eyes. Pride swelled in my chest. Both my guys had the same soulful gazes and riotous dark curls. Marina's smile thinned. "You two do make cute offspring." As if on cue, Ellis emerged fresh from a shower, his dripping hair leaving damp marks on his collar. My stomach tightened. We hadn't seen or spoken to each other in over a decade beyond tense pleasantries 3 weeks ago. Oblivious Nate popped up, bounding over to tug Adrian's sleeve. "Daddy, come see baby." Ellis froze. Eyes narrowing, he took in our son's coloring, a perfect blend of Adrian's Cuban roots and my fair Scottish heritage. The way Nate clung adoringly to Adrian left no question of paternity, despite Ellis's clear surprise. His lip curled derisively. "Precocious little guy you've got there." Heat flooded my cheeks, but Adrian just chuckled, swinging Nate up easily onto his shoulders, their matching grins warming me to my core. My happy little family shone bright enough to eclipse any darkness. Marina hastened to diffuse the sudden tension. "He's such a darling. You must be so proud, Callie." I met her too bright gaze levelly. "Beyond proud. Adrian and I feel incredibly blessed every single day." We shared a private smile over Nate's giggles as he drummed Adrian's curly hair like a keyboard. "Daddy's hair is silly," Nate crowed. Adrian rolled his eyes in mock exasperation, grin belying his true delight in our son's antics. Marina's laughter sounded strained as she watched our easy intimacy. "Well now, Callie, no need to rub it in that you finally snagged your white picket fantasy, Irritation flared in my chest at the thinly veiled scorn. Adrian tensed, ready to unleash some protective heat, but I touched his arm lightly. I could handle her needling lies. Setting Nate down to play with his toy cars, I faced Marina squarely. "I wasn't aware sharing facts about my family counted as rubbing it in, Marina. We couldn't be happier, though. I'm sorry if that bothers you." My teeth flashed in facsimile of a smile. Her nostrils flared delicately. The baby stirred in her rigid arms. It seems motherhood has done wonders for that famous Callie modesty. I bristled as she added breezily, "Don't get me wrong. You were always such a shrinking little violet. I'm glad you finally grew some thorns." Nate's joyful babble underscored the tense silence. Adrian radiated fury beside me, but I squeezed his hand, willing patience. Just a little longer. I let the pretense fall away, meeting Marina's spite-filled gaze with calm certainty. "Maybe you just didn't know me as well as you thought back then." My smile felt more genuine than it had in years. "But I know who I am now. Finally." Marina's frosted pink lips pressed into a thin line, manicured nails digging cruel half-moons into Sloane's blanket. Before she could retort, the front door burst open. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was a beast." My sister Liv breezed in, all bouncing ginger curls and freckled smiles. Her entrance allowed the tense moment to deflate. I almost laughed at the matching, dumbfounded expressions on Ellis and Marina's faces as Liv prattled on, peeling off her coat and scarf to drape on a chair. "I ran into James downtown last week," Liv continued, dropping a kiss on Nate's head as she passed by him playing on the floor. "That man has aged like fine wine, I tell ya." She turned to Adrian with a wink. "No offense, darling." Adrian just chuckled, slinging an arm around my shoulders. "None taken." I bit my lip, watching emotions flicker across Marina's face in rapid succession. Surprise, confusion, dawning unease as she processed our unexpected tag team. Two could play at her manipulation games. Marina, Ellis, "This is my sister Olivia," I introduced after an awkward beat. "Liv. Meet my old classmates." "Lovely to meet Callie's nearest and dearest," Liv enthused, shaking their limp hands before cooing at the now fussy newborn. "Ooh, what a wee bairn you have here." Marina shushed Sloane absently, eyes narrowed at our cozy dynamic. I watched the wheels turn behind her calculating gaze. She thought inviting me over would let her gloat about her picture-perfect life, never imagining I now had an abundant support system beyond just Adrian. Well, this is cozy. Marina cleared her throat with affected daintiness. "Anyone for more tea?" "Oh, I'd love a splash," Liv sighed, claiming Marina's vacated seat with enthusiasm. Oblivious to the undercurrents, she launched into a story about her salon mishaps that week, bright laughter filling the terse room. Across from me, I noticed Ellis boring holes in Adrian with his stare. My husband seemed relaxed, one arm draped casually over my chair, but I recognized the protective set of his jaw. Adrian radiated easy confidence. This was his arena after all. "So, Adrian, is it? What line of work are you in?" Ellis bit out abruptly. Trust a type A doctor like Ellis to lead with thinly veiled competition. Beside him, Marina perked up, clearly wondering the same thing. Adrian smiled placidly. "I'm a chef and restaurateur. Own a few local spots downtown. You've probably heard of Blackbird?" I hid a smirk at their dumbstruck expressions. Adrian's flagship restaurant, Blackbird, was a massive success, featured in magazines and constantly booked months in advance. Far cry from the struggling line cook I'd met years ago, though his humble drive remained unchanged. "I can't say I've had the pleasure." Ellis practically choked out the admission, "though I don't often dine out with my schedule." "We'll have to fix that," Adrian said easily. "Dinner is on me anytime. I insist." His generosity contrasted Ellis's transparent posturing beautifully. Adrian shone confident and self-assured, born of years proving naysayers wrong, while Ellis still clung to same arrogance that drove him to cruelly stomp on my young heart. How had I ever found that appealing? I settled deeper into Adrian's loose embrace with a hidden smile. Marina and Ellis wore equally sour expressions. All their scheming to humiliate me only reflected back their own inferiority complexes, while highlighting what truly mattered, my family. The dam broke over an otherwise innocuous comment. Liv, bless her oblivious heart, turned to me with a wide grin. "So, Collie, think you and Adrian will give little Nate a sibling sometime soon? You know I'm dying to be Auntie Livy to a wee lassie, too." My chest tightened reflexively. We hadn't shared my secondary infertility struggles outside of close family, given the painful sensitivity. I opened my mouth, flailing for a polite deflection, but Marina spoke first. "Oh, they already tried, didn't you, Callie?" Her tongue caressed my name mockingly, eyes glinting. Apparently it didn't take. Fury roared in my ears. The indignity of her smirking down at me, using my private pain as ammunition, broke the final thread of patience holding me back. Adrian shifted beside me, seconds from snapping, but I squeezed his wrist lightly. This was my battle, the culmination of years of my nightmares, starring Marina's sweetly smiling cruelty. No more. Setting my tea down with precise, controlled movements, I met her glittering stare. "I apologize if our happy news today threatens you, Marina. It must be uncomfortable realizing your bizarre invitations failed to showcase the perfect life you clearly crave affirmation for." I kept my voice calm and steady, like my hammering heart wasn't audible. "The thing is, our lives were never in competition. I don't need to put you down to lift myself up like you seem determined to do. I'm genuinely happy, though I'm sorry if the same isn't true for you." Marina reeled back as if I'd struck her, cheeks flushed beneath artfully contoured makeup. For the first time in our long rivalry, she had no facile retort prepared. The raw, unveiled hurt in her eyes penetrated through her superficial shields, offering a glimpse of the scared little girl still inside. The one who lashed out in fear of being judged or found unworthy. My anger drained away just as quickly as it arose. With sudden clarity, I realized Marina was the one still living in our traumatic past, prisoner of old insecurities blinding her. Meanwhile, I'd found peace through Adrian's love and the family we built together, the very things she tried so hard to deny me. Her efforts no longer even dented my joy or self-worth. I had finally won by refusing to keep playing her games at all. Into the loaded silence, Adrian added the coup de grace we orchestrated ahead of time for this moment. Well, this has been an experience, but I think it's best we head home. Busy day tomorrow finalizing the offer on that new restaurant space. He checked his watch theatrically. Plus, I have a meeting scheduled first thing to brief Ellis's administrators on certain concerning workplace behaviors that have come up. Ellis blanched. As a department chair at the hospital, with a reputation for coasting on prestige and family connections over work ethic, scrutiny into shady practices could be career-ending. Adrian's expression remained placid, but his eyes flashed triumphantly. Nothing brought him more satisfaction than seeing entitled bullies face real consequences. Marina looked rapidly between them in dawning dismay before turning wounded eyes my way. For a heartbeat I saw again the quivering, rejected 17-year-old girl I'd once been. My chest ached with grief for our broken friendship, the lost potential. Then the shutters descended once more, and scowling, emulate Marina hid her wounds away, turning without another word to seek refuge behind the fortress of her meaningless perfections. Just like that, it was over. I walked away without a backwards glance, finally free. My talk with Liv 2 nights later revealed the full ripple effects from that explosive day. After screenshotting Adrian's subtly threatening texts to Ellis about reporting physician misconduct, I decided to abide by fate's final twists. Word traveled fast around those elite circles. Humiliated by Adrian's reveal and infuriated by his threats, Ellis retaliated by filing for divorce from Marina. Drunk on self-righteous indignation, he soon found himself suspended from the hospital after my worm of a sister-in-law no longer relayed an unverified complaint about scrub nurse harassment. The perfect life Marina fought so hard to flaunt splintered just like that. I almost pitied her if the depths of her cruelty over the years hadn't burned that softness out of me long ago. Learning she'd been little more than a status symbol herself proved justice enough. Now, she could enjoy Ellis's temper without my shoulder to cry on when it turned her way. Meanwhile, Adrian celebrated a banner year, opening 2 new wildly popular restaurants in L.A., while we started an exciting new chapter abroad. That dream trip to Spain we fantasized about during our broke newlywed days in that cramped apartment with peeling paint finally manifested into reality thanks to his soaring success. Nate took to expat life and Spanish lessons like a fish to water while we reveled in sharing beloved foods, vibrant murals, and flamenco music as a family. Our daughter Pilar arrived 9 blissful months after we relocated, her little face the mirror of my own baby pictures. Those joyful early weeks with 2 healthy children, thousands of miles from old ghosts, felt nothing short of an answered prayer. On Pilar's first birthday, I video called my parents back in the States, keeping one eye on our giggling baby covered in cake. Their proud faces filled the laptop screen until Nate ducked into view, clutching his new stuffed llama, chattering about his cool Spanish friends. Watching my son charm my beaming parents with exaggerated hand gestures, mimicking his teachers, I felt my heart expand almost to bursting. After they hung up, I pulled out my journal, pens scratching swiftly to capture the emotions bubbling up. How could I ever explain to little Pilar about Aunt Marina someday? My children knew nothing of frenemies or heartbreak. They jumped freely into life, trusting themselves inherently, something I struggled so hard to learn. I never wanted them to dim their shining light for anyone. Later, Adrian found me staring wistfully at the dark screen after I tucked our worn-out birthday girl into bed with her brother. Strong arms wrapped around me from behind, and I relaxed into his solid warmth. "Happy thoughts?" he murmured into my hair. I nodded, turning to frame his beloved face in my hands, eyes prickling with inexplicable tears. "Just realizing how lucky I am, how happy and free." He smiled softly, brushing his thumb across my cheek to catch one shimmering tear. "You did this, you know. You faced your demons head-on and came out stronger. I'm so proud of you, mi amor." Standing wrapped in Adrian's arms, I let his words sink into my skin, into my very bones. He was right. The dark ghosts that haunted me for so long only had power if I let them. Today I closed that door. Looking forward at the joyful life we built, I wouldn't waste another moment. The girl who let people determine her self-worth was gone. My worth shone through my children's laughter and my husband's loving gaze. Finally, I was enough just as I was. Survivor scars and all. Marina lost her grip long ago. I smiled up at Adrian through tears of hard-won peace, softly echoing his words. I did this.